All right. Well, hey everyone. I know we're gonna have a lot more people trickling in here as we go, but we want to be prompt here and start on time and keep on a good schedule here today. My name is Mitchell Hora. I'm the founder and CEO of Continuum Ag, and bringing this webinar today as part of our CI series of our Topsoil podcast and our Topsoil webinar. Our intent here is to continue to bring expert connections and being able to provide educational content around soil health, around this new carbon intensity angle to soil health outcomes. I got a key expert here today that's already really deep into this stuff that ADM has going on. But Justin is my co-host here today, so we're switching things up a little bit with some of our podcasts here as we go into this fall and going forward, where it's not just going to be myself hosting the webinars, but being able to utilize some more of the folks from the Continuum Ag team. I apologize, I'm out on the road here today, sitting in a parking lot at a meeting that I'm supposed to be in, but it's all going to work out fine. Hopefully my connection and all that will continue to work out. So for those that don't know Continuum Ag, we provide farmers a digital roadmap for soil health success. We got into the carbon intensity space with our Topsoil software earlier this year and launched the carbon intensity scoring systems that we have built out, and we've reverse engineered the scoring system to improve the recommendations that our system provides to farmers and the agronomic support that we provide. Basically, like I said, giving that digital roadmap for soil health success. Go ahead to the next one there, Justin. And we help farmers understand that soil health continues to be the focus. And that really needs to be the takeaway from this meeting here today as well. Focus on the soil health principles, focus on controlling your cost of production and farming smarter. That's the tried and true. Carbon is a bonus. It can be a big bonus. I think it's a huge opportunity, and it's going to continue to be a factor for the foreseeable future. But it is still a bonus. And keeping to those soil health principles, understanding how to deploy them as offensive management tools, that is crucial. Again, within the company, I'm the founder and CEO. I'm a farmer myself. Justin, maybe I do tee it over to you. Maybe give you a quick intro, your role within the company, and then I'll tee up our special guest here today.
Yeah, so Justin Freyenberger, and I think my official title now is I'm the Director of Product and Process here at Continuum. So work closely with the software development, going to be working closer with that as moving forward. Then I'm also pretty involved in communicating with our farmers because I'm looking for customer success lead as well. So I'm doing a lot of direct communication with our farmers and helping them to implement those soil health principles effectively, and then also kind of advising them on this whole carbon intensity space as well.
Yeah. Justin has been extremely deep into the deep into this carbon intensity space, and a key co-host for me here today. So to tee up our special guest, and also for everyone that's on, be sure to put your questions in the chat as we go, or raise your hand. We can definitely have you come off of mute and ask your questions to our group here or to our guest, Theo. But feel free to put those questions in the chat anytime so you don't forget. Like I said, we'll open things up here in a little bit. So to tee up Theo, a lot of you on the meeting probably know Theo already. Theo was previously with Iowa Soybean Association. That's where he and I first started really working together, from Southeast Iowa originally. So Theo, we got to claim you for that, man. So
hey, whatever
Theo
works.
grew up man. Theo grew up in Southeast Iowa, but is with ADM now. And what, Theo, you joined them? It hasn't been a year quite yet, has it? Or maybe right out a year.
Turned over a year back in July, so a little over a year since joining ADM. And yeah, prior to that, worked with Soybean Association and some of their internal research programs, and that's where I got to meet a lot of farmers around the state. And with a focus on how to help farmers implement cover crops successfully, look at those tools and make them work on their farm. So really aligned with what you're doing, and I know that's where we met.
Yeah, that's where Theo and I first got it working together. I think we're now in year 7 of our replicated cover crop versus no cover crop trial that Dad and I host at his home farm. But Theo was the original guy that got us involved in that project a number of years ago. So Theo, let me turn it over to you. And really the key with this webinar, Theo joined us at our conference here this summer. ADM has really been out on the forefront when it comes to some of these carbon programs, sustainability initiatives, and especially when it comes to monitoring your actual carbon footprint, or more so your carbon intensity score. So we're going to dig into that, but we'll let Theo kind of set the stage. They've got a wide array of different programs going on that a lot of farmers on this call might be applicable for. So want to kind of start with that. We'll go from there. But Theo, enough babbling from me. Let me turn things over to you, but appreciate you taking the time and hanging out with us here today.
Not a problem, Mitchell, and I appreciate the invite, and I think that there's a lot of interest here, and there's a lot of moving parts, and so I'm happy to provide some clarity of what ADM's doing. So we've had programs focused on sustainability set up around specific processing locations for several years. There's been a cover crop program in the Des Moines area that many farmers in Iowa might have participated in. We've also had some different field to market aligned programs that have been active for several years, working with some of our downstream customers. But really in the last year and a half, with the ADM regenerations rollout, we've taken this to another level of where we were before and where we're headed. So recognizing the potential, but also the need for helping farmers document and connect what they're doing on the farm with downstream customer demand, and making sure that there are real quantifiable benefits to both the farmer and also connected to the products that we sell, that we process or sell downstream. So there's a lot of market opportunities out there. There's a lot of different approaches that people are taking. There's practice-based approaches. There's carbon intensity, which I know is of interest and broadly applicable. But I think my
favorite thing, Theo. It's my favorite thing, man.
Yeah, I know. It's a fun topic, but it's also coming out of working with farmers and trying to implement these systems with them on their farms. There's a lot of people who are doing good things, and there's a lot of people that can follow the leaders that have explored these systems and are making them work. And now, we're kind of stepping on the gas to provide those incentives and connect what farmers have been doing, what they can do with the downstream customers that we serve and sell products to, that are looking for sourcing, products that have or commodities that have specific production methods and production metrics associated with them. So we're building this program to be widespread, and we have some offers initially, and it seems like there's a lot of runway left in terms of how they can be implemented and how farmers can participate. So looking at the slide here, what I want to cover here a little bit is just why ADM's offering these programs. I want to talk a little bit about the ADM regenerations programs, and I'll focus on Iowa, and then how to participate and what we have going on. I know, Mitchell, we want to get into some conversations around future opportunities, but I'd like to talk a little bit about what we have going forward, or have on the table now, and then we can get into some of what the future might hold and how we'll be participating in it. Mm-hmm. So if you look at these programs, there's a lot of interest from different stakeholders here. Consumers, investors, governments are all seeking reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. I don't think that's a secret. I think everybody has been aware of this for a while. There's different ways to go about that, and there's different interests involved. What ADM is focused on doing with our programs is serving our downstream customers that are looking for ways to reduce the emissions within their supply chain. They're looking at their supply chain and seeing that there are that a majority or a large proportion of the emissions associated with their products are occurring outside of what's happening within their factories, within their control, and they're looking to other parts of the value chain to both quantify, to get better information, but also to incentivize reductions where possible in that supply chain, and that's how we're approaching this. So for all of my role is to enroll farmers in these programs and be farmer facing. We also have people in our that are looking and interacting with our downstream customers, consumer facing companies, other people and groups that we sell products to understand what their needs are, what they're looking for in terms of emissions and the product and the products we sell them, and then coming up with ways to connect the two, right? Connect the farmers that we're buying from with incentives, and also to help quantify and provide good environmental outcomes associated with the products that we're selling them, so that they can have a good feel on that.
This is a really important shift here that I think is a little different, Theo, than what it was just a couple of years ago, where a lot of the talk was about buying carbon offsets from third-party supply chains, or maybe that agriculture was going to create carbon offsets that companies could buy. But what you're talking about here is insetting and scope 3 reductions and looking internal, where the customers of ADM on the buy side, on the offtake side, are saying, hey, what are you guys, how are you guys reducing your carbon footprint? And you're saying, well, hey, we can only do so much at our facilities. We're working on that. But the big footprint here really stems on the upstream to the farm. And that's where there's opportunity to highlight that message and decarbonize at that level.
Absolutely. So there's things happening both internal to ADM and we're offering this to the people who we purchase commodities from. So we're trying to we're looking both internally. We're looking in the mirror and seeing what we can do, but we also recognize there's a big opportunity for farmers that sell us their grains and attaching environmental outcomes to those. So yeah, this is within the value chain. That's where we're trying to focus. We're not we're looking at from the consumer level all the way back up. Where are ways that we can connect the two?
I like it.
So the regeneration. So I guess a quick overview here on scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. I know, Mitchell, you've covered this many times before, but there's some important knowledge here for people that haven't looked into this too closely. So we're looking at our scope 1 and 2 emissions. Those are the things that happen within ADM's control. Where, like many other companies, we're looking at our footprint, and we've quantified what our scope 1 and 2 emissions are, and we've made pledges on what we're trying to reduce there. So you can find that's all publicly available information. But then these scope 3 emissions, both on the upstream and downstream activities. So upstream of us would be farmers in general. Sometimes it would be some suppliers, commercial suppliers, things that they have going on. But upstream of us is farmers, and then downstream of us is people who buy from us. So we're trying to work with our downstream customers that are looking for their scope 3 emission reductions, both our internal and farmers, and trying to incentivize reductions in the most economical way possible, and in a way that is sharing both the incentives and the benefits of reducing those with all parties involved. So an example here, and the next one I'll give is, this is right out of our corporate sustainability report. So we've got a pretty well-defined scope 1 and 2 emissions footprint. You can find this information on our website. We're pledging to reduce our emissions. We're making some progress towards that. But then if you look at the right side there, the scope 3 emissions, this is forest, land, and agriculture. So this is all of the scope 3 emissions from ADM's perspective. And you can see they're a large chunk, right? They're much bigger than our scope 1 and 2 emissions. So these are things that are within our value chain, but outside of our control. And so our goal is to incentivize reductions in the scope 3 realm, while at the same time addressing our scope 1 and 2 emissions. And when we do that, then we help our customers, our downstream customers, and we can also incentivize and be beneficial to our suppliers, the farmers, who are doing things to make these reductions happen.
So I think this slide here is really, really interesting, and one that I haven't necessarily seen from a lot of other companies. I'm sure I guarantee they're all working on this, but I just haven't seen a lot of them that'll come out and display it like this. But what's really interesting here is the ADM scope 1 and scope 2 footprint is 15.2 million tons, but the scope 3 footprint is 118 million tons, significantly bigger. Like 85% of ADM's footprint is in the scope 3. Right. And like what's laid out there, a lot of that's on those ag lands. Because am I reading it right that what is it, like the dark blue or the purple plus the light blue, those are both from like agricultural or forest land. The green is the non-agricultural land. So must be other transportation or other supplies or other like the packaging or something. There's something else there, but is that what we're kind of looking at here? And that's obviously why we're talking with the farmers here today, that
sure,
out of ADM's footprint, 85% of it comes from the supply chain. And out of that mass, at least 75% of that or 80% of that is associated with acres.
Correct. So those scope 3 emissions, you've got the forest, land, and agricultural emissions, and then you also have the estimates of emissions as a result of land use change, which are huge. And those are there's different ways to quantify that. But really what we're looking at is those flag emissions, not the land conversion in North America, but more so, how the crop was produced, what goes into producing those crops. And those are the scope 3 emissions that farmers have a role in generating, and also, on options to reduce when they change their management. So, by no stretch is this one or the other. This is ADM doing what we can within our facilities to maintain our processing capacity, but also, looking to our suppliers and looking for opportunities to reduce emissions within their systems that indirectly lead into our scope 3 emissions.
So help us understand this, the land use change. It's one that, as I get more involved in all this, I see it a lot of times, but does that one actually apply to a lot of the farmers that are on this call that are in the Midwest? Our land has been crop ground for 100, 150 years or more in a lot of cases. Yeah, it was prairie. Now it's row crop ground in an annual cropping system. Does it still count on that? Or is this mostly like where it's newer lands, or maybe this is more of a South American component of the score where it was more recently rainforest or more, perennial system, and now it's crop ground? Or is this big for like our farms too?
This is international. So this is an overarching report. So the land use change component is not as applicable to North America. It still can be, but most of what we're talking about with our programs here in Iowa and the Midwest are going to be focused on those forest, land, and agricultural emissions, and less so of land use change because there just simply is fewer acres that are being. But it's still something.
What's important though what's important for the farmers on here though is, hey, we're maybe not converting acres, but it is still something that's being looked at, because sometimes there are still acres that are being converted. It's still a metric. It's still a part of the equation.
It can be, yes.
Interesting. Really interesting.
So I'd invite anybody to look at our reporting on this topic. We have some transparency around it as a publicly traded company, and that's why it's out there, and that's why I'm telling you about it now.
Very cool. So the point here is we got a lot of opportunity to reduce. Love it. Cool. So go to the next slide here. So the big picture here is I'll go back one more. We've got internal goals. We've got downstream customers that are asking for this. We've got export markets that are looking for better quantification of the emissions associated with the products that they're importing. We've also got potential for domestic public policy to help shape these incentives. And they're all kind of happening at the same time, and in many regards. What our programs are set up to do is to offer farmers a simple way to participate and be compensated for the changes they're making or what they're doing on their farm that can satisfy this downstream demand. And I think, Mitchell, what you've been consistent on, and what that last point is data is the key here to this opportunity. These aren't as tangible as a load of corn or a load of soybeans or a barge of one of those, for that matter. But the information, for it to have value, has to be real. It has to be quantifiable, and it has to be it has to demonstrate that the changes that are occurring or whatever is happening is documented properly. So how a crop is grown, even if it's being sold into a commodity stream, how that crop was grown has value beyond just using it to manage agronomic aspects of on-farm activities. So there's more value in it than it just being on farm going forward. I 100% agree, and I think that's definitely you're right. That's what we've been really trying to yell from the mountaintops is, hey, the data that we got to put together here, that's how we're going to be able to actually monetize this or be able to actually utilize it. You got to have the data, and really it's helping ADM to tell a better story. Like in the last slide, you had, hey, here's the math as it works out today, but I'm sure there's a lot of assumptions or very conservative numbers that have to be plugged in there because we don't necessarily know all the details as it exists today. So today we have to be conservative in the numbers and conservative in those estimates. And the more data that we can get in, the more accurate we can be, and the better story we can tell throughout the ag supply chain, but tell to the policymakers, to the end consumer, to environmental groups. The more certainty we've got, the better this is all going to be.
Yeah, it's a math exercise, but it's also a documentation exercise, right? So this is showing your work. We know that there's good things happening. We know that farmers can do a lot on farm, but we need to have the evidence that supports it, and so people can have confidence that that what they're buying and what is being incentivized is actually happening.
Another quick thought here too, and thinking out loud for everybody on the meeting here. When ADM puts out a report like what Theo was just showing, it's not just them putting out claims and numbers. Those claims also get third-party verified. So it takes data to be able to make those kind of claims. ADM can't just say whatever they want to say. It's not going to, at least in the long term, companies are not going to be able to do that. They're going to get called out, and they have to pass the sniff test here, and they've got to get that third-party verification. And the only way to get that is with data.
Yep, that's correct. So if we head on to the next slide here, our programs are available in 18 different states, United States and Canada. There's some programs emerging in other parts of the world. So the Regenerations program, while it ties together previous pilot projects that might have existed and people might be familiar with, this is across our entire processing footprint in the United States and North America. So corn, soy, wheat, milling, sorghum, peanuts, also canola was added this year. We have offers in some cases in their first year for farmers to share data on how they produce their crop and be compensated for implementing and doing certain practices where we know we can have ways to estimate the effects of those and connect those with our downstream customers that are buying the products from us. We don't expect that there's going to be less of this. And while there's certain offers that we have available today that might not be enticing to growers to participate, I guess the thing to keep in mind is that these are going to change going forward. The same way that we're bidding and pricing grain to purchase every day, and farmers are looking to market their crop. They should be thinking about how they can market the information that supports how they grew that crop in the first place, because it can have value now, but it also can have potentially more value and different value as these market opportunities continue to develop and change over time.
That's what I love. I think about how we should be thinking about this here is that when we're selling a product to ADM, we're actually selling two different things. We're selling the physical bushels, the commodity, at a commodity price, and then we're selling the data. And that data has a separate price and separate value. They are associated together, but really the math is going to be different and needs to be kind of thought about as two separate items that are being sold. They're being sold in conjunction, and they go on the same scale ticket, but it's really two separate things that we're talking here, two different products that have value.
Right. And the commodities, those are pretty well developed markets. There's good price discovery. There's ways to hedge and work within those markets. This data and the outcomes are a little different, right? There's different quantification methodologies. There's different requirements. It's not currently number 2 yellow data, so to speak. And so we're working towards those things. We're trying to find the best ways to deliver those outcomes and use appropriate models that are widely accepted and by both people who want to buy outcomes and people who want to sell them. And so it'll continue to evolve. But I guess the big point here is that whether you're doing this with our program, whether you're doing this with somebody else's, understand what you have and understand what your markets are. And if you're willing to participate, then there's likely an incentive to do so.
I love that. I think that's so spot on, that it is understand what the value of your data is, not only to you and what it costs to you, the producer, to create that data. So don't only understand your value, but understand what's the value for the next folks. And I think ADM, you guys are showing, hey, here's why we are able to pay for these things. Here's where that dollar comes from. Here's the goals that we've got to meet, and here's why we're doing this. For whoever you're selling to, make sure that you understand what is in it for them. And right. as we keep alluding to and we're getting to here, the value of that's going to continue to change, and what's driving the dollars is going to continue to change. But there are opportunities here today too, and you guys have demonstrations all over the place that there is value in doing this.
Yep. And on the next slide, we can get into a little bit more detail about what we have. Well, I guess all of our programs are going to be aligned. We've been a member of Field to Market, and many of our programs are Field to Market affiliated. So they have been historically, but really this is what Mitchell, what your organization does all the time, right? Yeah. You're talking about maintaining living roots, minimizing soil disturbance, keeping carbon in the soil and putting more of it into the system, managing your inputs responsibly and conservatively so that they're not lost, cover and bare soil, and maximizing diversity and in rotations and other metrics. So that's, I guess, just a sense of where our programs are focused, and I don't think that's much different than what you or most others 100%. That are in this space are looking towards.
Yeah, like so many of the folks that are on this call. I mean, these regenerative ag principles, is the primary driver of, why we do what we do. We're going to mimic Mother Nature and utilize these principles to make us more profitable. However, they directly align with the programs from the likes of ADM. That
Yep.
It's the same principles, and that's why it does resonate, and why Continuum Ag has gotten so involved in these initiatives, is saying, hey, we're helping farmers to implement these practices anyway. And hey, that story has a lot of value.
Yep.
How do we go and utilize that to tell that story? It's a marketing type of thing, but there's a lot of value.
Sure. And the next slide, we can go to that one. So we have an offer for cover crops. If farmers are either using cover crops now or thinking about using cover crops, we'd love for you to consider participating in our program. We have some basics, a baseline offer of $10 an acre. It can be stacked with public programs. It's available for early adopters or middle adopters or people who are just getting started. Don't limit on acres. There's no delivery requirement. So there's an option there to if you're using that practice or want to use that practice more, to look at that. We also have a program with the USDA for the Climate Smart Commodities Partnership, where that funding has allowed us to offer a higher rate for cover crops to people who are recent adopters, so between 2018 and 2022, or also new to this year. If you've got acres and you're expanding to add more cover crops to your operation, then there's an option there to receive a higher payment. These are 1-year agreements. We're looking at 1 year, so these could change over time, but this is what we have available for 2023 across all the states that or most of the states that were shown on that previous map. And they're available widely, and we would hope that farmers would consider us if they're using the practice, want to use the practice, and are looking for additional ways to be compensated for using that practice. The next slide is going to highlight a little bit about what we have on emission scoring, I do believe. Want to go to the next one? So currently we have an offer for what's called ISCC programs, and these are export programs to Europe. They have a market there where they're looking for a certification for the commodities that go into producing ethanol that's exported there and carries that certification, and also for whole soybeans that are exported to the EU. So what we have done is taken that offer for this year, the ISCC certification, and paired that with what's called carbon intensity or emission scoring. We're calling it emission scoring. And what that does is takes field level data and calculates an emission score. There's a couple different ways to do this. There's different methodologies out there, depending on the assumptions you make. And we're combining what we have with our ISCC program with emission scoring so that farmers can do both. And what that does is gets people in the door. What I tell farmers all the time is every bushel that you produce has an emission score. It's just whether or not you've calculated it or not. And what this program can do is compensate you for what you sell to us directly. These ones do have a delivery requirement. And then it can also get you in the door with calculating that emission score and set you up for any future offers that might have an emission score and that field level information required to get that incentive. Yeah. So go ahead.
This is the type of thing that we've really started preaching is carbon intensity, but ISCC. Okay, so again, that's the European markets for products going to Europe. That's a huge opportunity for groups like ADM to tap into here and drive in some value. And it's very the scoring for the farm side of things is pretty similar to GREET, but it's not the exact same thing. A little bit different. Can you maybe hit on some of those similarities versus differences?
So the requirements for ISCC is that farmers are attesting to what how they're growing their crops. So there's certain questions they have to answer that have to do with whether or not they've had deforested land within their operation, whether or not they're using pesticides and disposing of waste products correctly and legally. So there's things that are involved with those questions that are part of that ISCC certification that are different than just field level scoring. And that's what when you enroll in our program, you're attesting to, and you're saying that you're doing those things. It's also there's also some auditing required of both the facilities that produce ethanol. So our facilities that carry the ISCC certification have been certified for that. And then also the farmers who supply corn, in this case, or soybeans to be exported into those locations are certifying that they're compliant with what's being done at the field level. So we're combining that offer with emission scoring so that farmers can get that field level scoring, can participate in ISCC certification. And, then in the future, if there are additional incentives tied to that specific emission score beyond ISCC, then they'll have that opportunity to opt in. They'll be, more familiar with that metric on their operation. And at the same time, for those who deliver to us directly now, they can receive additional payment for crops that they're marketing to us.
And this is such an important thing for everyone on here, again, that it's not just your emissions, your carbon footprint, but there are some of these other components as well. They basically all stem back to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, so that's what's driving this. That's why there's some of those other components like Theo was talking about. But it's basically just you're signing off saying, hey, I attest that I don't, I'm following the rules and I'm doing things correctly. But make sure that you can prove that, because people will get audited and it's got to be legit. But it's basically that farmer, signing off. And for farmers on this call, and I would assume that the mass majority of farmers in the US, they're not going to have much for problems with some of these attestations. Getting the environmental footprint where it needs to be, that's a different story. But some of these other components, as long as they're following good practices, they should be fine.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And wherever there's a certain threshold to meet, a metric that needs to be quantified, our programs are going to work with farmers to make sure that they have complete information. And we can't pay on incomplete information and for things that don't meet the threshold for certification. So we'll have those internal checks and they'll be built into participation in the program. But overall, our goal is to make it easy for farmers to opt in, recognizing that these incentives aren't big enough to have a giant hassle factor attached to them. And we want to make it straightforward and transparent, how people can participate and how they can get access to these incentives. So on the next slide, I'll get into some more details there. There's what we're offering on these. So if you're delivering corn and soybeans to us, there's a small per bushel incentive. On the low end of that, that's for completing the score and having that score attached to the bushels you deliver to us. On the higher end there, we're offering an additional incentive for people who meet or are below our estimated benchmarks affiliated with those locations that they deliver to. So this is an opening bid, right? This is the first year we've offered, or I guess the second year we've offered this, but the first year that we've offered it really widespread and across a majority of our locations. We're looking for farmers to score their whole farm operation so that they have an average operational score whenever they deliver something to us. Within the crop year that data is associated with, we're going to be able to quantify that and then compensate them for the deliveries they've made. These don't have a practice change requirement. So if farmers are delivering to us, they can get their score, they can participate and receive these incentives. and they don't necessarily have to change anything to do that, but they are attesting to what they do. We trust that that farmers are going to do what they say when they sign an agreement, and will confirm and check and audit as much as we need to make sure that we can sell verified claims attached to the products that we're selling downstream, so that we're maintaining that confidence in that market incentive.
Yeah. So and with this stuff, for these different variety programs, the data is put in with FBN's program Gradable. For farmers that are on here with this, that have their data in topsoil, will help you to get that moved into FBN. We've had some initial conversations with them about automating some of that and building out some connections there. It'll be fairly manual, at the beginning here, which is fine, but just know that, hey, ADM is working with FBN to gather some of this data. If you're working with us and have your data in topsoil, we'll help to make it simple for you. Just let your regen success agronomist know that you want to participate, and we'll help you to get connected in there. The key with this here stuff too, Theo, is, hey, these are pilots. This is early stage stuff. This is ramping up. You guys are now into year 2. It's nothing crazy, but hey, it's a start, and it's the concept here that's going to continue to really scale up.
And I'll reiterate that these programs only work if everybody's engaged from the end user all the way up to the farm level, and that's where when we have farmers that are willing to participate and do, they're the ones that are going to receive the payment. I guess if you go to the next slide, this is kind of an overview of, this isn't in isolation. So if you're in Eastern Iowa and you're selling corn and soybeans to ADM, that's great. We appreciate your business. We want to be a choice for you to sell your grain. But there's farmers all over the United States that are receiving the opportunity to participate. So there's you're always competing against other farmers in other regions. This is just one other consideration, right? Making your product worth more, and documenting how it was produced has this value. And this isn't centered around one specific location anymore. These opportunities are more widespread. And while it is, in a pilot stage more so, because it's so early on, don't expect that these are going to just disappear overnight. And the places where farmers are engaging, they're going to see the benefits of it. So I'd encourage people to look at what's going on, both what we're offering and what others are offering, and don't stay on the sidelines too long.
Yeah, the biggest thing with this is some of these prices here. This is for, again, the ISCC stuff. Want to talk here a little bit about 45Z. 45Z is not going yet. 45Z has the potential to massively change this, but it's not going to impact your 2023 crop. This is about your 2023 crop. 45Z isn't due to start until Jan 1, 2025. So this is your 2023 crop. On your 2024 crop, things could be significantly different, but we don't know when that's going to be. We don't know exactly what those rules are going to be. However, what we do know is it's going to be pretty darn similar to what we're talking about here in this webinar. The concept, the data connectivity things, the process is going to be about the same. So that is the important thing to be paying attention to is, hey, you can start getting paid for this data that we're helping you to collect today.
That's correct.
You can start moving the needle now. You can start, the process here. And as things change, the program is going to continue to change. And this is a European market that's driving this. But as these U.S. tax credits, as they come to fruition, now there's additional incentive or additional influence that's going to impact. But the concept is going to be the same. So, and Theo, maybe speak a little to, what is you guys' approach on that so far? The flexibility. The key with this is data tied to the bushel and we got to get these bushels moved, on this 2023 crop. We're not necessarily going to hold on to this stuff clear till 2025, at least definitely not in bulk. So,
no,
get paid and get your adequate compensation today, and understand that, hey, this is going to be continuously more and more important in the future.
Yeah, there's going to be changes to that. So our programs are going to be updated annually. I guess if you head to the next slide, it might touch on this. I can't remember if it was this one or the next one. But these are 1-year commitments, right? Right now we're talking about the 2023 crop with the emission scoring, with attaching these the certification to that crop and the deliveries that are going to happen in the next 12 months. The same with the cover crops, right? So we're looking at the 2023 fall seeding season. That's what we're going to pay on in the spring of 2024 once we verified those acres. And we're taking it one crop at a time because we know these incentives are going to change. Now, whether those are coming from a fuel incentive, whether they're coming from our food ingredient customers that are looking to attach environmental outcomes to them or reduce their Scope 3 emissions, our programs are going to respond to those demands. And like you said, the majority of the data and the majority of the information at the farm level that's going to be needed is consistent. It's just whether it's just how it's used, what metrics are generated from them, and also what particular outcome is a downstream end user trying to incentivize and quantify. So this is where our programs are set up to be flexible in that regard. So whether you're making a practice change or you've done stuff for 20 years and you want to be having that reflect in your score, if you're using a cover crop or you want to add a cover crop, there's flexibility there. They're going to have different incentives attached to it. And whether you're in, we know that there's a ton of public dollars out there incentivizing these practices. And so we want to be compatible with that and not exclude farmers who have started, as long as they're not in another privately funded program that's trying to quantify those outcomes, then we can work with you, and we'll take it 1 year at a time. But the enrollment and the re-enrollment is intended to be so simple, and most of your data is going to be there and just needs to be updated, that you're making a decision about where to market your outcomes and where to mark and what to connect to your bushels when you market them, rather than a decision that is based on 10 years of baseline data and 10 years of future plans. We'll have it follow the crop that we're marketing now, because that's how this business works.
Yeah, and that is what I like about this. And everyone, if you've got questions, we'll open things up for Q&A. Justin, I'm sure you've probably got a couple as well. I've been getting my questions answered. I didn't mention at the beginning, I went to the meeting that ADM hosted yesterday, saw Theo give some of this. So I already had a whole bunch of questions I was holding from yesterday. So great to be able to get those pulled through. We've talked a lot about 45Z and other concepts here. On our Continuing Ag YouTube page is a ton of material from old webinars about some of that stuff here. But I think, Theo, what you were just talking there, that, hey, this is your data about this 2023 crop. You're going to sell that 2023 crop and some of this data, and you've got a small premium, for compensating for that data, but you're not locked into a long-term thing. And we know for sure that it's going to be different on the 2024 crop. And by doing something like this, it provides some of that flexibility. It's not a carbon offset program. It's a Scope 3 reduction inset type of program. And I just think that that's going to set people up so much better for that flexibility and to be able to capitalize on this. Obviously, ADM is going to want to make as much as possible in these initiatives as well. And as the opportunities change for ADM to monetize, those options are going to change for farmers to monetize alongside. So that, to me, is why I wanted to make sure that you got on and got in front of our audience and stuff here to iterate on this again, where it's like, okay, this concept that we keep talking of, your management data, the environmental outcome of carbon intensity, have that verifiable or maybe even all the way verified. That's what we do. with working with eco engineers, we can get it all the way to third-party verified. And hey, that data and that story has got some value. And you can start tapping into it right now.
Right. And that's where, I've always maintained, so even prior to joining ADM, I felt that the most likely shift in the landscape was going to come through market incentives attached to the crop. And I wouldn't be here in this role if I didn't believe that. I've seen the benefits of public programs, of pilot programs, of people exploring these practices and using them on the landscape. The attaching them to the crop and connecting them to the economic value that is driving the systems on the landscape is the way that we can make the most improvements, and people from the end users all the way up to the farmers can see those benefits. So that's what I'm focused on, and that's what our programs should help farmers do.
Justin, what do you think? We'll turn it over to you. You're a very quiet co-host, Justin, but turns out I talk a lot. And
this is no surprise. So questions from the chat. We don't have a bunch yet, so if anybody has questions that they want to ask, go ahead and put them in the chat, or if you're able to raise your hand too, we can always just have you speak out loud. One that we do have in the chat right now, and this came in about the time we were looking at the map with the different programs, kind of their locations. So our boy Joel Reddick here asked, are these programs available for crops being sold in participating states but not grown in those states? For example, he's saying that he grows his soybeans in Kentucky but sells them in Illinois.
That would be a good question for for the origination team. So if you work with an originator in that area, I would call them and ask them about your eligibility. I know that there's some situations like that. I want to say yes, but you'd have to confirm that. But if you're looking for how to enroll, or you're looking for program details, the website for sure is going to have the information about the contacts, or you can go into to FBN and explore the modules and the agreement and the language of it. But if you're delivering to us and you have and you're using these practices, you may not have all of the incentives available, but there should be something.
So that's a couple of important things here too that came up yesterday as well, that these payments and stuff, the data goes through FBN, and then an FBN account and your ADM account kind of get linked up, and you get paid then back through ADM account. It's only when you're selling directly to ADM. If your grain is going to the co-op for the bushel, yeah, that's right. Thank you. For the bushel incentives, for the per acre and the cover crop incentives, that's separate. But
anybody who is who's growing cover crops and is looking for incentives on that within those states, you can sign up and do cover crops with our programs. And then if you're for the bushel incentives, the per bushel incentives, those do have a delivery requirement. And yeah, you're right. So the way that our setup with FBN is that you manage your data within your FBN account. It remains your data. You're opting in to use it for participation in our program, and then to quantify the bushels and to connect the farm level carbon intensity score or emission score with the bushels that you've delivered to us during the eligible delivery period. You can connect your ADM producer account to FBN, and that will that'll facilitate that process much easier, and to make sure that we can, we know which accounts had the deliveries coming from that farm operation with the score attached to them, and that way we can document and pay you appropriately.
An opportunity here for folks that are involved in their local grain elevator or sell to a grain elevator. That elevator needs to start looking at how are they going to collect some of this data? How are they going to be able to share information with the ADM? That's not the way that it's going to work right now. But what the point of a lot of this conversation today is, hey, here's where the puck is going. We're already got the pilots going. ADM is already on the forefront getting this to work. but think about it from your context here of how is your farm going to participate, or the company that you're involved in, or a board that you're on. How are they going to participate in these initiatives? They need to start figuring out how to gather some of this data and how to make things connected. And obviously it's what we're trying to figure out too with Continuum Ag. We have the ability to help farmers gather this data, help them to lower these emission factors, these scores, especially when it is 45Z and the GREET model, where it's the value is directly tied to the score. So things are just going to continue to change here. And I don't know, Theo, to me, this is super exciting. And it's obviously, why you're at ADM here now too, and made the career change that you did. Like, this is continuing to shift and change pretty drastically from where we were a year and 2 years ago.
Absolutely. And it'll continue to change. The incentives will change. But overall, have your data ready, know how you can use it, understand your scores and what you're eligible for. And, and then find the partners that you trust and you want to work with to manage your data so that you can make the most of your crop when you're marketing both the way it was produced and the actual physical bushels themselves.
Such an important deal.
So, okay, we've got 3 minutes here until hard stop time, but time for one more question, I think. How many growers and acres are being given the opportunity to join in some of these programs this year, and how many are already enrolled?
I don't have the exact numbers at my fingertips that I can spout off, but I'll tell you that enrollment has commenced in all of those states. If you are right now, enrollment is open in all of them, so none of them, I believe, have been capped. If you apply and you don't get in because we've reached a cap, then you'll be notified, of course. But I would encourage everybody to look at our program offers, look at the enrollment tool that's in FBN.com. And if there's any questions about those, I'm happy to answer them in regards to Iowa and Minnesota and my colleagues around all of these states that manage these programs are available to tell you more about it and to get you started.
Absolutely.
But we haven't hit the ceiling yet, and there's a lot of acres left to be covered. There's a lot of bushels that don't have CI scores, and so the more that they're scored, the more opportunity there is.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. It's and as we wrap up here, this whole concept once again is so right, and why we are gearing up as aggressively as we are here at Continuum. A lot of you are already selling ADM. We already have a lot of this data put together for you. Might as well is kind of where my head's at. Like, hey, I mean, is it crazy dollars and going to change your entire farm? No, but hey, this is where things are going. It's the 2023 program here. All the other ones I've seen on the 2023 crop are all extremely similar. ADM's right there with everyone else in helping to lead the charge on this, and really out ahead from what I'm seeing for the most part anyway. And it just sets people up for this story to resonate even more on that 2024 crop. Make sure that you understand how to have your 2024 ducks in a row. Make sure that you understand what your carbon intensity score is. Make sure you understand how the 45Z factor is going to change this, because then it's directly tied to what your CI score is. And we want to help you to get that as low as possible, and then make it simple to participate, and get that data to FBN or get ADM the pieces that they need, or the other third-party verifiers. It's going to take data. Theo, you talked about that at the beginning. It's going to take data, understand what that data is, and we want to help to make that simple. But Theo, I mean, awesome stuff, man. And I think really interesting that this is real, that this is going, and that it's going to continue to change. But hey, farmers, you can roll right now. Like, you can tap into this today. So,
yep.
Good stuff, but appreciate you spending the time here and hanging out with us.
Thank you, Mitchell. And if there's anybody that has questions, I'm happy to follow up. I'm not hard to find. Our website's there, and myself or my colleagues would be happy to tell you more about our program. So thanks for the time, Mitchell. Thanks for hosting Justin and Mitchell. And we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, appreciate everybody joining us.
Thanks, Theo. Thanks everyone that was on. We'll be sending out this recording will be on our YouTube page soon. We have more webinars coming up in the coming weeks as well. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.